smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
New day, new show, a new experience.
Start your day with the news, not views.
We bring you stories that matter
and impact your life.
News that informs and keeps you ahead.
From Maximum City, Mumbai,
to the seat of power, Delhi.
Hello and welcome. This is India Sense. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines. First up, Prime Minister Modi pushes the pedal on his Act East government policy, attends the ASEAN-India Summit and the East Asia Summit, charts out a 10-point agenda for closer cooperation with the region. This comes after Prime Minister Modi visited Brunei and Singapore last month and hosted Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim.
मानना है कि 21वीं सदी एशियन सेंचुरी भारत और आसियान देशों की सेंचुरी है.
Sri Lanka's new president Anura Kumara Dissanayake reaches out to India for inclusion of the island country into the BRICS group. India is a founding member of the grouping. BRICS is a powerful vehicle. Voice of the Global South, AKD reaches out in an attempt to ensure Sri Lanka balances India's interests in the region. Chinese investors reject the government stimulus program, falling confidence in Chinese economy, recent assembly wins, putting to rest any speculation about political stability in India, and stable crude prices are conditions ripe for India to attract big-ticket global investments. Middle East remains on the edge. Tensions remain high. Theatre of the war expands to Lebanon as Israelis go after Hezbollah commanders in southern Lebanon region. Russian President Vladimir Putin meets his Iranian counterpart. Stage set for another US versus Russia standoff. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar will attend the SCO meeting in Pakistan, the first visit by Indian Foreign Minister in 9 years. With no bilaterals, will the visit lead to any possible thaw in relations? Big story on India Sense. Tensions in the Middle East. As things stand right now, stage is set for a West versus Russia standoff in this region. Israel has already expanded the war into Lebanon. It is utilizing a very unique opportunity that exists before the American election on the 5th of November. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have backed Tel Aviv and will continue to do so. And while President Biden's call for restraint have been few, Israel is in a position to ignore them, given the leadership vacuum that exists in America right now. It's a short window, but it does exist. But that's just half of the story. Russia's interests in the region are just as deep. And Israel has always ensured it doesn't cross Putin's red lines. Russians were informed ahead of attacks on Iran and Syria in the past. And as Israel weakens Iran, it cuts into Russian interests. A weaker Iran is good news for America, but not for the Russians. Iran and Russia are not natural allies, but they've forged deeper ties in the last decade or so and really pushed the pedal since the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, where the Russian army has used a lot of Russian drones, Iranian drones, amongst other things. And as Putin met his Iranian counterpart, Mohammad Pezeshkian, his calculus of the security framework could in fact change. Listen in first to the sound bites of Vladimir Putin and his Iranian counterpart. We come back and talk more.
отношения с Ираном носят для нас приоритетный характер.
همکاری‌های دو کشور برای ما یک اولویت است.
Они развиваются очень успешно.
هر حال اوضاع در منطقه بسیار بحرانیه و کشورهای اروپایی و آمریکایی دلشون نمیخواد منطقه آرام باشه تا بتونیم این ارتباطات رو در بستر آرامی با همدیگه ادامه بدیم.
Even as they confirm and reassure each other and the world that their bond is getting stronger. The theater of the war is now shifting. It's no more just Gaza, it's now Lebanon. Israel is going after not just people in Lebanon, but also UN peacekeeping forces. Listen into this report, take a look at this to tell how the theater of the conflict is now shifting. As tensions continue to simmer in the Middle East, the world is holding its breath. Will diplomacy prevail, or are we on the brink of disaster? A nuclear catastrophe? Netanyahu has issued an SOS to Lebanon. His chilling warning: there will be Gaza-like destruction. This as Iran-backed Hezbollah militants continue fighting Israeli soldiers on the front lines. But there's a wider conflict brewing, one which could significantly expand the theater of war and draw in both Russia and the US. Following Tehran's October 1st ballistic missile attack on Israel, precisely 180 of them Iran's oil facilities and nuclear sites are in Israel's crosshairs. Israeli retaliation could trigger a global diplomatic fallout and send oil prices through the roof. Tehran says any attack against its infrastructure will provoke an even stronger response. There have been rumors of a possible change in its nuclear policy. Moscow endorses Iranian version. It maintains Tehran's missile attack on Israel did not occur in a vacuum. As the world watches closely, the need for diplomacy has never been so pressing. All that one can hope for is cooler heads will prevail. So the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wants to alter the political map, but he also knows the red lines right now for the American government, which is that any attack on the Iranian oil fields will push up gas prices domestically, just weeks ahead of the election. So he knows that. So possibly a limited attack on military installations in Iran is more likely. But a stronger Russian support for Iran may also now be in the offing, and this could backfire for Israel. Russian military capabilities, even when it's stretched in Ukraine, can be a big bump up for the very obsolete or dated Iranian military capabilities. So that's the backdrop in which you can see a US versus Russia playing out in the Middle East. As far as India is concerned, more tensions is bad news. It's bad news for our plans for more connectivity in the resource-rich region. New Delhi's prosperity is very closely linked to the prosperity of the region. A better, integrated, peaceful region that is able to address the many fault lines that exist amongst it is good news for India, just like it's good news for the world. The first wide-angle story on the show. We are now talking about the future economic trajectory of the Indian economy. And I stick my neck out to say it's never been as good as it is right now. And I give you three key reasons and factors what is working for India. First is the poor health of the Chinese economy. The big bang mega stimulus that the Chinese government announced seems to have failed. The mega stimulus was aimed to lift the world's second largest economy, hasn't done so. The stock market seems to have suffered their worst rout since 2020. And the enthusiasm is now waning as investors expected follow-up measures to back the spending commitments that the Chinese government made. But that hasn't happened. As of now, the 2024 target of Chinese government of a 5% growth pretty much looks out of reach. Now, the second factor that's working for India is the political stability. Ever since Prime Minister Modi's third term started, there have been motivated, some would say, reports that suggested that the government is susceptible to instability because of its reliance on allies. Now, that theory stands junked after BJP's very decisive victory in the state of Haryana. And the third factor that's working for India right now is the downward trajectory, or a very stable trajectory as far as crude oil prices are concerned. India imports 85% of its crude oil imports and needs, and the present geopolitical tensions have not had such a big bearing as far as crude oil prices are concerned, ensuring that government's finances remain under control. And all these factors will collectively act as a big push as far as attracting global investors are concerned. They need growth opportunities. They are not seeing that in China, they are seeing that in India. And the next 1 year, unless there are some major extraneous factors on which nobody really has a control on, I see the Indian economy being very uniquely placed to attract some big ticket global investments. All right, let's get the first top voice on the show. We've spoken about the economy. Let's get in the WTO chief economist, Mr. Ralph Osa, on the show to first talk about the kind of growth estimates the WTO, the World Trade Organization, has for 2024 and 2025. Mr. Osa, what are the findings, sir?
We predict the volume of merchandise trade to grow by 2.7% this year and 3.0% last year, which is only a small change from our April forecast. But what has changed is the regional composition. Europe is weaker than we expected, and Asia is stronger than we expected, but overall it balances out. Services trade growth is also strong. We don't have a forecast, but the data that we have seen already for the first quarter of 2024 were very strong, indicating growth in services trade by 8%.
You mentioned Asia is doing better than you had expected. So could you give us some breakup about India as far as the Asia pie is concerned?
We expect Asia to be the strongest performing region, with Asian exports growing by 7.4% this year and 4.7% next year. We don't have a specific forecast from India, or for India, but from the data that we have seen, India is expected to be very strong, both on the import side as well as on the export side. And part of the reason is also that India is increasingly functioning as one of these connector countries between China and the United States, for example, as firms are trying to diversify out of China.
Okay, you mentioned US. It is the world's largest economy. There have been concerns about a possible recession. Does the WTO share those concerns?
We see North America doing pretty well, both on the import side and as well as on the export side. So if you look at imports, for example, we expect North American imports to grow by 3.3% this year and 2.0% next year in value terms. We don't have a specific forecast for the United States, but the United States, of course, plays a very important role in that region. One interesting development in North America is also that we see a lot of activity in Mexico, in some ways similar to India, also becoming a connector country between China and the United States.
Okay, but then let me also ask you about, sir, the kind of trade tensions and disruptions that one is seeing. Do you see that having a spillover in terms of global trade? Could the present tensions in the Middle East act as trade disruptors?
The geopolitical tensions are the main risk to the forecast, and in general, I should say that the risks to this forecast are firmly on the downside. Of course, if there were an escalation of tensions in the Middle East beyond what we already see, this could have implications on energy markets, which then would have implications on economic activity and also trade. What we already see, and this is not now because of the tensions in the Middle East, but something we've been seeing for a while, is a fragmentation of trade along geopolitical lines, where trade between geopolitically aligned countries is growing more quickly than trade between geopolitically non-aligned countries. What we don't see, however, and that's quite interesting, we don't see nearshoring, so we don't see a regionalization of trade, but we see what is sometimes called friendshoring, which is a reorganization of trade around geopolitical lines.
All right, Ralph, so thanks much for speaking to me on India Sense. We slip into a quick break. We come back on the other side and talk more about India's narrative. It's finding more takers, whether Sri Lanka, Maldives, and why are Chinese loans now suddenly out of favor. We come back and talk more. Stay with us.
NDTV World Summit 2024, October 21st and 22nd, only on NDTV Network.
I don't care for no songs and proses. I don't care for no sweet boys with roses. All I want is a touch of love.
The moment I saw it, I thought I will have to come here. I'm loving it.
An experience to remember for a lifetime.
जानू ना मुझको कैसे है पा लिया इस शहर ने लापता था मैं पहले अपना लिया इस शहर ने शोर भी लगे एक दिन की तरह
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
India's IT capital is always bustling. It's literally a city that never sleeps. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
बहुत ही चुनिंदा लोग होते हैं जीवन में जो इतना लंबा रास्ता तय करते हैं.
Almost 50 years now, more than 350 films. मेरी first film में I got national award.
जो हीरोइनों की बात आपने करी कि कोई काम करने के लिए उनको मना कर देते थे, किस हीरोइन ने तोड़ा ये?
नहीं, ये एक्चुअली जिना तमन जी ने मेरे को सबसे ज़्यादा मदद की. कुछ जिमिस जी ने देखा बोला ये तो इज़ अ वेरी हैंडसम लुकिंग बॉय एंड अच्छा काम करता है, डांस करता है, आई विल वर्क.
हिंदुस्तान की जर्नी, आपकी करियर की जर्नी साथ साथ चलती रही. कोई ऐसा लम्हा या कोई ऐसा मौका आपको लगता है जो दोनों जर्नी मिलती है?
इंडिया इज ग्रोन लाइक मी. आई थिंक इंडिया भी तकलीफ़ों से बहुत बड़ा हुआ है. इंडिया कोई आसानी से इतनी बड़ी जगह जो आज वर्ल्ड में नाम बनाई है तो इसने इतनी जल्दी आसानी से नहीं.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Welcome back. This is India Sense with me, Gaurie, Dwivedi, the second wide-angle story on the show. Coming from Sri Lanka, fortnight after being sworn in as the change agent in Sri Lanka, AKD Anurakkumara Dissanayake is now keen to strengthen Colombo's ties with New Delhi. India is one of the founding members of the BRICS bloc, and Colombo has reached out to New Delhi to enter into the grouping. Entry to it is important because it is essentially the voice of the global south, and it could provide Sri Lanka's economy with key trade routes. What does this mean? And is AKD setting the stage for warmer ties with India? Take a look at this report.
The upcoming BRICS summit in Kazan on the 22nd of October could be extremely consequential for Sri Lanka and its new president. Colombo will make a formal pitch to enter the grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. This follows its reach out to India for membership into the BRICS grouping. But one may question, why has AKD or Anurakkumara Dissanayake not reached out to China instead? After all, China has large projects in the country and the current president is known to be close to the dispensation. This is due to the bitter lessons Sri Lanka learned after the 2022 economic and political upheaval, which led to Sri Lanka's sovereign default. It was New Delhi that extended an extraordinary support with $4 billion in financing facilities. Despite China's bigger exposure to Sri Lanka, Beijing denied repeated requests for a $2.5 billion credit line or any restructuring of its debt. In the last 2 years, as Sri Lanka got back on its feet, New Delhi has successfully demonstrated its growing capabilities in this regional competition. BRICS is considered gateway to the global South economy. Combined, the BRICS members encompass about 30% of the world's land surface and 45% of the world's population. BRICS is a tangible entity presiding over a multilateral financial institution, and the country with the most influence over the bloc will naturally be seen as the leader of the global South. As things stand right now, Sri Lanka's newly appointed president knows not to topple this apple cart.
Second top voice on the show, we spoke about Sri Lanka. It's got a woman prime minister, and let's get in a woman speaker to come in on the show. Silvana Koch Meherin, who is the founder president of Women Political Leaders. Thank you so much, Silvana, for speaking to me on India Sense. We're speaking at a time when Kamala Harris could really break that ultimate glass ceiling in global politics. She's raised $1 billion in funding. What kind of a message do you think her victory could send to women leaders around the world?
Political figures are always public figures, and role models matter a lot. So representation matters a lot. And we've seen this in many, many ways, that if there are women, for example, my home country, Germany, Angela Merkel being 16 years in power, or now for the EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen being the president, that has impact, because there is the saying, you can be what you can see. So if there's a woman at the top of political leadership, that definitely sends a strong signal.
Indeed, but you've been interacting with a lot of women political leaders. You're a woman political leader yourself. How do you think you differentiate, or what are the differences between male and female politicians?
We definitely see a big difference when women are in political leadership in significant numbers, because it of course matters that it's not just one woman or two women, but that there is a critical number of women who actually can move the needle. And we have done a very, very comprehensive study together with the World Bank and academic partners like King's College, where we showcase that the discrimination by law against women is reduced with more women in political leadership. And that means then that women can more actively participate in the economy, which again has benefits for all of society. Similarly, in health or also in other policy areas, more women in political leadership really make a difference, because they bring in different perspectives, different priorities, and just kind of having this whole diversity of decision making.
What do you think Southeast Asia gets right that the world needs to follow? Only recently, Sri Lanka got Harini Amarasuriya as its new prime minister.
I'm always very happy when I hear that there is a woman advancing into leadership position and also bringing up more women with her, or in her team, or just as an encouragement. You know, what I think is critical is that we don't leave it at those one single women, that we then basically can say in less than 2 minutes all the names of all the prime ministers, presidents that are women around the world. Last week in the UN General Assembly Hall, there was the high-level meeting, and less than 10% of the speakers representing their countries were women. So what does Southeast Asia get right? Well, they might embrace diversity in decision-making already stronger. I don't know, I'm not the expert on it, you don't know much better. But I think what is critical is that we make this complete normality, that it doesn't really make a headline anymore, that people don't get excited that there is a woman, but that it's just normal.
Indeed, indeed. Let's see how far back are we going to be able to get that. But according to you, when women are at the top, what kind of a decision-making public policy really happens then?
What holds societies back massively, be it in economic development, in cultural development, in educational development, is old stereotypes stereotypes that confine men to certain areas, that confine women to certain areas of life. And by this, we miss so much of the potential of that, what a society could have. So more women in leadership, they change the stereotype on what is a leader, what does leadership look like, what does a leader look like. And this opens possibilities for women in other sectors of leadership, if it's in the corporate, in the academia or elsewhere, but also for men, because it becomes more of a side by side than competing or one behind the other.
And what about India? India has produced very strong political leaders, women leaders in the past. How can we build on this momentum?
I believe very much in peer-to-peer learning. And instead of me giving advice specifically, I think what is really empowering and also helpful is to check with other countries, how do you do this? What are the untold lessons that you can apply also in your own situations? And this is very inspiring for the current leaders to stay in and to do a better job, but also for girls who might consider going into politics, or just to make them consider going into politics, just to also make them aware of this is very much an area where they can excel.
Salman, I really appreciate you taking out the time and speaking to me on India Sense. All right, on the inside story today, Pakistan. Dr. Jaishankar is headed to Pakistan for the SCO summit, the first for an Indian foreign minister in 9 years. His visit coincides with Pakistan's domestic crisis that's expanding and threatening to engulf its polity and its entire judiciary. Shahbaz Sharif's government is weak. It has no legitimacy. It's in power largely due to the deep state's rigging of this year's elections. At such a time, one may ask, who should India actually be engaging, if at all any such engagement opportunity even arises? The fault lines in Pakistan have never been sharper, and New Delhi is rightfully in a wait-and-watch mode. But the consummate diplomat, Dr. Jaishankar, is aware about the significance of New Delhi's subtle but important messaging. For one, India has made a clear distinction between SAARC and SCO. SCO is the largest regional grouping. It has security at its core, whether it's terrorism or its naval exercises or providing India with greater connectivity to the Central Asian region. India's interests for SCO are many. And as for SAARC, well, India has created parallel arrangements like the BIMSTEC or BBIN and strengthened its bilateral engagements with other neighbors, excluding Pakistan. The second important message, you can see the map on your screens that tell you the prominence of some of these groupings. India choosing to not downgrade or miss it, irrespective of who hosts this meeting, is another very clear and important message. Both India and Pakistan have said that there will be no bilateral talks and there's going to be no thaw in relations. But with India and Pakistan, one never knows. For one, for India, any engagement with Pakistan will only be driven by its security calculus. But remains to be seen if Pakistan's political situation, the volatility in its politics right now, could worsen or even lead any of that change whatsoever. All right, that's all the time we have in this edition of India Sense. Thanks so much for watching.
NDTV World Summit 2024, October 21st and 22nd, only on NDTV Network.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
India's IT capital is always buzz. It's literally a city that never sleeps. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mideast is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
The moment I saw it, I thought I will have to come here. I'm loving it.
An experience to remember for a lifetime.
जानू ना मुझको कैसे है पा लिया इस शहर ने लापता था मैं पहले अपना लिया इस शहर ने शोर भी लगे एक दिन की तरह
बहुत ही चुनिंदा लोग होते हैं जीवन में जो इतना लंबा रास्ता तय करते हैं.
Almost 50 years now, more than 350 films. मेरी फर्स्ट फिल्म में ही I got national award.
जो हीरोइनों की बात आपने करी कि कोई काम करने के लिए उनको मना कर देते थे, किस हीरोइन ने तोड़ा ये?
नहीं, ये एक्चुअली जना तमन जी ने मेरे को सबसे ज़्यादा मदद की. कुछ दिन जी के बोला रहे ये तो इज़ अ वेरी हैंडसम लुकिंग बॉय एंड अच्छा काम करता है, डांस करता है, आई विल वर्क.
हिंदुस्तान की जर्नी, आपकी करियर की जर्नी साथ साथ चलती रही. कोई ऐसा लम्हा या कोई ऐसा मौका आपको लगता है जो दोनों जर्नी मिलती है?
इंडिया इज ग्रोन लाइक मी. आई थिंक इंडिया भी तकलीफों से बहुत बड़ा हुआ है. इंडिया कोई आसानी से इतनी बड़ी जगह जो आज वर्ल्ड में नाम बनाई है तो इसने इतनी जल्दी आसानी से नहीं.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download
erupts in Karnataka over the 2022 Hubli riots case. Karnataka government withdraws 60 criminal cases. Charges dropped against AIMIM leader and 138 others. BJP accuses Congress of minority appeasement. ED files money laundering case linked to the massive Delhi drugs haul. Searches underway in Delhi, NCR and also Mumbai. In focus, Jammu and Kashmir government formation. Congress Aam Aadmi Party extends support to NC. Omar Abdullah meets LG, stakes claim to form the government. Israel batters Lebanon. UN has claimed second attack on its premises in 48 hours. 2 UN peacekeepers have been injured. MEA has flagged concerns now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Canadian Prime Minister. Prime Minister has reiterated demand for action on anti-India elements. India has said that ties cannot be repaired until action is taken. The Japanese Atomic Bomb Survivors Group has won the 2024 Nobel Peace Prize for its efforts to achieve a world that's free of nuclear weapons. We'll start the bulletin with some breaking news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met Canadian leader Trudeau at Laos. In fact, he's there for the ASEAN Summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting the Canadian Prime Minister on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit. Remember, he was there to attend a lot of bilateral meetings, and this comes even as there were tensions between India and Canada over Canada's support to some anti-India elements, especially those linked to the Khalistani movement. India has made it very clear that a dialogue is not possible until Canada reins in on some of these elements. Kadambini, my colleague, joins me with more details on this. Kadambini, this is a very significant meeting. Prime Minister was in the southeast country to attend a lot of bilateral meetings, but Justin Trudeau meeting Narendra Modi at a time like this, specifically when his own electoral politics is being questioned, is important. Has India stood its ground when it comes to Justin Trudeau's politics on supporting Khalistani elements?
Well, what we are learning is that Justin Trudeau had spoken at a press conference in Lao PDR while he was there for ASEAN and East Asia Summit, and he told the reporters there that he came face to face with PM Modi, and he had told PM Modi, he emphasized in front of him that there are real issues to be solved. Now, India has had a very cold relation with Canada since September 2023 when the PM of Canada stood in their parliament and accused India of having a hand in the killing of Khalistani Hardeep Nijjar. Now, after this claim of Canadian PM that he had a conversation with the PM Modi, our sources are telling us that there was no substantial discussion or conversation between PM Modi and the Canadian PM in Laos, and India is still expecting that there would be firm action against anti-India forces there, be it Khalistanis or those dealing with drugs and violence and extremism, and the growing nexus of such forces with organized crime and drug syndicates and human trafficking, etc. are still going on in Canada and a concern for India. India values relations with Canada, but expects a verifiable action which can be seen so that the relations can move forward. So now this is what our sources are telling us, that there was no substantive discussion at all between the Canadian PM and PM Modi when they came face to face in Lao PDR.
Right. Thank you, Kadambini, for joining us with those details. India reiterating that there is demand for action when it comes to anti-India elements in Canada. That was an important meeting there. And Kadambini, my colleague, reporting on that. Moving on to some domestic politics, Congress government in Karnataka has decided to withdraw certain cases in connection with the Hubli police station riot in which more than 150 persons were booked for attacking the cops in 2022. In fact, this move had led to a controversy as BJP had strongly objected to the decision, and it has charged that the Congress government is supporting terrorists. Commenting over this development, Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has maintained that the government will have the power to withdraw certain cases. When asked about the decision regarding withdrawal of 43 police cases, including the Hubli riot case in the cabinet meeting, he stated that the government has the power to withdraw certain cases and he will verify all the details. He said, and I quote, "The BJP always launches agitations over lies. I will talk about this matter after verifying the issue." That is what he has said.
As far as I know, the police department and the Ministry of Law of the state government, they have opposed the withdrawing of the case. In spite of that, they have withdrawn it. That means, in a way, they are supporting Islamic fundamental activities.
ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ಕೇಸುಗಳನ್ನು ವಾಪಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ವಿರೋಧ ವ್ಯಕ್ತ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ರಹ್ಲಾದ್ ಜೋಶಿ ಅವರು NIA ವಿಚಾರಣೆ ನಡೆಸಿದಂತಹ ಕೇಸುಗಳನ್ನು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ವಾಪಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತಿರುವಂತದ್ದು.
ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಲೀಡರ್ಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರೋ ಕೇಸು ವಾಪಸ್ ತೆಗೆದಿದ್ದೇವೆ, ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ನಾಯಕರುಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೂಡ ಕೇಸ್ ತೆಗೆದಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದ ವಿಚಾರ ನಮ್ಮ ಹೋಮ್ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ.
Opinion that this is definitely not appeasement politics, and that there were also several cases which were inconclusive. 43 out of 60 cases that have been considered for withdrawal from prosecution, and you're also talking about certain cases that involves even former BJP MP Mr. Sudhakar, also former BJP General Secretary Mr. C.T. Ravi. So this is the justification provided by Congress leaders. However, the BJP hasn't really taken this too kindly. They have been suggesting that this is nothing but appeasement politics. Yesterday, during the cabinet meeting, is when it was decided that out of the 60 cases that are pending in different police stations across the state, 43 would be considered for withdrawal, and that the state government has the power to do so. Mr. Siddaramaiah, the Karnataka Chief Minister, has also given a statement to the media stating that the Cabinet Subcommittee as well as those leaders, including the Home Minister, have suggested this, and it is only based on their wisdom as well as judgment this decision has been taken. The Chief Minister has also promised to look into the kind of decision that has been taken in this. But yes, the political blame game has has already begun in Karnataka, especially amidst the Muda allegations here. As of now, what we understand from the opposition leaders is that they are planning to launch protest to fight this. They have been suggesting that the misconduct of the Congress needs to be addressed, and that is precisely why they want to hold these protests, which again Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has reacted vehemently against. He has said that it is only false cases and false things that the BJP would really react to as well as protest, but they would definitely never protest for the truth. So this has also become a political flashpoint of sorts, but all eyes are on the protest that would be undertaken by the BJP and the reaction that would follow by the Congress.
More news from Karnataka. Now, Karnataka Congress MLA Raju Kage has taken on his own government. The MLA has hit out over farmers' welfare, and he has said that his government is not listening to him when it comes to farmers' interest. He said that the Karnataka Congress government has failed farmers. In fact, he has threatened suicide at Vidhana Sauda. In fact, this is a legislator from the Congress party from Kagwad. His name is Raju Kage. Let's listen into what he said before going across to my colleague Pratibha, who has more details on this.
ರೈತರ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳು ಯಾವುದೂ ತರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ರೈತರು ಬದುಕು ಇದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ನೀವು. ಏನ್ ಸುಳ್ಳು ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಾವು ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷ ದುಡಿದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಜೋಳ ಬೆಳೆಯಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಗೋಧಿ ಬೆಳೆಯಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಕಡ್ಲೆ ಬೆಳೆಯಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಬೆಳೆಯಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಗೋಧಿ ಬೆಳೆಯಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಭತ್ತ ಬೆಳೆಯಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ತಿನ್ನೋದು ದೇಶ? ಏನ್ ರೊಕ್ಕ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬಳ್ಳಿ ಬಂದಾರೆ, ವರ್ಷದ ಮುತ್ತಗಳು ಅರ್ಥದ ಬದುಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಏನು ರಸವನ್ನ ರೈತರನ್ನು ಮೊದಲು ಬದುಕಿಸಲಿ. ರೈತರು ಬದುಕಿದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ಈ ದೇಶ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಹೊಂದಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ. ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ನನ್ನ ಗೋಳ ಇದು ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧದಿಂದ ನಾನು ಆತ್ಮಹತ್ಯೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತೀನಿ ಸರ್. ಯಾಕೆ ಆತ್ಮಹತ್ಯೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಮಗೆ ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
As far as this statement of Raju Kage is concerned, this is not something new because he's always known to be a controversial leader of sorts with controversial remarks that have definitely not gone down well with several political leaders. In fact, during the last Lok Sabha election, he did threaten the voters of cutting out the electricity if they did not vote for the Congress. And this also invited a lot of cases with the Election Commission at that point in time. But what the Congress did not really anticipate is that this statement would come against the Congress party in itself, because Raju Kage has spoken about the farmers' causes here and that he would be allegedly trying to commit suicide if the Congress does not really pay heed, and that the Congress leaders haven't really paid heed for at least about a year. These are some of the statements that have come from